Hello BookTube, welcome back to my 2025 library tour. In this episode, how did these books get at the bottom of the bookcase? First up is Post-War, A History of Europe Since 1945 by Tony Jute. So this is a history of Europe in the aftermath of World War II. Have not gotten around to it. Indian Summer, The Secret History of the End of an Empire by Alex von Tunselman. So this is a history of the end of the British Raj. Have not gotten around to it. Red Heat, Conspiracy, Murder, and the Cold War in the Caribbean by Alex von Tunselman. So this is about the Cuban Missile Crisis. Again, haven't read it yet. Visions of Empire, How Five Imperial Regimes Shaped the World by Christian Kumar. Have not gotten around to it yet. I think I picked it up a few years ago from Princeton when it was on sale, like 75% off. Either that or I picked it up for about as cheap from Alibris. Fifth Sun, A New History of the Aztecs by Kamala Townsend. So this is a history of the Aztecs from their discovery of the lake where Tenochtitlan was built and where Mexico City currently is, to shortly after the conquest of the Aztecs by Hernan Cortez. I think I liked the book, although I didn't love it. It's been a while since I read it, and it did win the Kindle History Prize, I believe. George, Nicholas, and Wilhelm, Three Royal Cousins and the Road to World War I by Miranda Carter. This should be with my World War I history books, but somehow or other, it's at the very bottom of this bookcase. Blood Royal, Dynastic Politics in Medieval Europe by Robert Bartlett. So this is a series of lectures about medieval royalty. Have not gotten around to it, and somehow or other, it's at the bottom of this bookcase and not with my other royalty books. Although I guess since I largely divided those up by kingdom, I'm not entirely sure where actually I would put it. Speaking of which, King of the World, The Life of Louis XIV by Philip Mansell. This is a biography of Louis XIV with a special focus on Louis XIV as a global monarch. His role in international affairs, not only in Europe but around the world. I remember this book very fondly. I was reading it while my mom was in the hospital a few years ago, and this book was a great comfort to me at that time. But again, why the hell is it at the bottom of this bookcase? It really should be with the rest of the French monarchy. Louis, the French Prince Who Invaded England by Catherine Hanley. Have not gotten around to this yet. It's a biography of Louis the Eighth, who was ever so briefly, possibly, would have been the first King Louis of England, because at the end of Richard I's reign, the succession was wonky. Now, of course, at this time, successions were usually rather wonky. It wasn't as codified as sort of set in stone as it would eventually become. So at this time, it was entirely possible for Richard, who, while he did not have children of his own, there were heirs in front of John, Richard's younger brother, who would succeed Richard I as King of England. And between John and Richard was the son of Geoffrey, who was Duke of I'm blanking on where it is. And also several of Henry II and Eleanor of Aquitaine's daughters, one of whom was married to a Spanish monarch, and then that granddaughter would be, or daughter, was then married to Louis VIII, the eventual Louis VIII. And so basically Louis pressed her claim to the English throne and invaded England, and very nearly came off with winning it. But fortunately for the Angevins and the eventual Henry III, John luckily died before he could be fully deposed. Anyway, so this is a biography of that Louis. Have not gotten around to it though. Young Queens, Three Renaissance Women and the Price of Power by Leah Redmond Chang. So this is a group biography of Catherine de' Medici, her daughter Elizabeth of Valois, who would go on to become a Queen of Spain as one of the wives of Philip II, and Mary, Queen of Scots, who would ever so briefly be Queen of France as the Queen of Francis II, the oldest son of Catherine de' Medici. Lurking behind these three women is a fourth queen, Elizabeth I. This is a fantastic book. I loved reading it when I read it about going on 2 years ago now. Really good book. Wish it had won some awards. Why is it down at the bottom of this bookcase? I don't know. It should again be with my French monarchy section. Guess I really need to put in the effort to create a royalty section. Speaking of Catherine de' Medici, this is Catherine de' Medici, The Life and Times of the Suffolk Queen by Mary Hollingsworth. So this is the most recent biography of Catherine de' Medici. It came out last year, and I really enjoyed it. It was phenomenal. And I also read much of this while my mom was in the hospital late last year, and gave me quite a bit of comfort. Strongmen, Mussolini to the Present by Ruth Ben-Ghiat. So this is a sort of group biography of a number of ruthless dictators from the 20th century, including So it's not okay. So it's incorrect. I'm incorrect. It's about how various dictators get power, keep it, and lose it. And so it's not like a distinct. There's a Mussolini chapter, or a Hitler chapter, or a Mobutu Sese Seko chapter, or a Muammar Gaddafi chapter. Rather, each chapter focuses on a number of these dictators. I remember quite liking it, but clearly don't remember much from it. The House of Medici, Its Rise and Fall by Christopher Hibbert. So this is a history of the Medici family who ruled Florence for a number of centuries, initially as first among equals in a kind of a republic, and then as dukes and eventually grand dukes. I think I read this a few years ago and rather enjoyed it, but I can't be certain of it. Oscar Wilde Prefigured, Queer Fashioning and British Caricature, 1750 to 1900, by Dominic Janes. Have not gotten around to this. And finally, Backpack Ambassadors, How Youth Travel Integrated Europe by Richard Ivan Jobs, which again, I have not gotten around to yet. I picked this up a year or two ago from the big cell catalog of the University of Chicago Press, and this book was rather cheap, and so I picked it up. But much like many of the University of Chicago Press books that I picked up, I have not actually gotten around to them yet. I guess in part because while they are inexpensive when it comes to the cell catalog, usually less than $10, they're not necessarily James books. But anyway, that concludes this bottom shelf. So starting tomorrow, we'll be back up on the other side of this bookcase and the top of it, and then work our way down. Although, I think when I finish off that side of the bookcase, I'm not going to be sitting on the floor to do it. Hopefully, I will be able to get up off the floor. Today has been quite tiring. Anyway, BookTube, I'm going to go ahead and sign up for now. So until I see you tomorrow with yet more history of the 2025 library tour, thank you, have a great afternoon, and stay safe.